So the stuff that I touch on a regular basis, I touch the college's SharePoint installation, which is something that I've been a champion of for about 5 years now, along with yourself as an early visionary in that. As well as the college movement towards video conferencing, the networking, building, and strengths of that. One of the key things that we've sort of built as a foundation piece behind all of our technology decisions is strong infrastructure, strong networks, and its singularity is from an identity management perspective, where we like to have one root authority for all humans, right? And we've decreed that PeopleSoft is going to be the place where all human record would originate from. We replicate that through to Active Directory and through Exchange, and any business decisions we make around a new system will have the mindset of PeopleSoft first or Active Directory first when it comes to identity. So kind of a consequence of that, we have a bias towards Windows-based technologies. So a lot of what we do is more about building capacity,
okay.
right? Like we pick a strategic plan term, right? We built SharePoint as an infrastructure, and SharePoint has itself is really just a development platform. Our NSCC as a portal is built on SharePoint technology. Similarly, our team sites and my sites are also built that same way. But SharePoint as a development platform gives us the opportunity to touch many systems and integrate many things and produce other applications that we yet to dream of. Nova Scotia Community College's primary objective isn't to have the best run IT shop, it's to have the best education students. So the IT shop is really about supporting that aim, so it has to be lean, mean, and efficient, and effective. Well, I mean, developmental projects, research and development projects, and production operations projects, there has to be some tie between them. What happens, and what's happened several times, it happened with SharePoint for that matter, is that something that was a developmental transitioned to something that was being production without a lot of plan, and then a project had to be cast, 2 projects had to be recast to retrofit and rebuild the system correctly.
I remember.
Right. The external one's probably easier to quantify, because we've already talked about a little bit of them, browser compliance, market share, and stuff like that. But even provincial legislation actually restricts us quite a bit on what we can do in the Web 2.0 scape, right? Because we can't store anything that touches the college record on a non-Canadian server. The internal ones are almost always entirely bound up in process. And in fact, the college doesn't have a PMO. Its process documentation is non-existent. And the processes that we have, some are mythological and legacy, as in we do these things because we've done them for 20 years, but they add no value anymore. And some of them are there because we don't understand them. We don't understand the moving parts.
You know.
Well, it's all about relative perspective, right?
Sure.
I mean, if you are personally on the bleeding edge, leaning out front, looking back, trying to haul the college back behind you, yeah, you're going to think everybody's a laggard. But really, it's when you take a perspective of looking at, and this is where it's good to look at the EDUCAUSE CDS Core Data Service Survey, and to look at where the numbers actually lie. And you say, wait, really, compared to our peers, we're actually okay. Because you always need to have somebody looking ahead and being out there and saying, look guys, we really need to go this way. Whether or not it was too far or not, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. But somebody always has to be out there at the horizon looking to see what's over the bend.
Scouts, if you will.
Well, I mean, some of it's scouts, and some of it actually is early implementation. Like, you can't really explore technology properly unless you've actually implemented it to some degree, right? Which is what's nice about pilots, right? But pilots are overused, right? Because pilots, you back to, we were talking about earlier about how development projects turn into production. Well, pilots turn into production even easier.
Yeah.
Right? And often without the forethought of how it would actually roll out.
Is that
Pilots have their risk. I mean, they have their benefits are very obviously far outweigh their risks. Right? Pilots really are a good way of organizing developmental projects. Right? There's research pieces which are totally pure research, and you throw them all away. Right? In the end of the day, right? After you do the developmental phase, then you should be doing a pilot phase, which is where your user experience stuff does. Is it an actual fit for the college? So you prove the technology with a developmental project. You run a pilot to actually prove that it's going to work for your institution or for your use case. And then you talk about a real project to build it for real.
Okay.
But I mean, the college has this issue, right? I mean, you know, we have the strategic things we do very, very well. We have operational on the ground stuff that we do very, very well. Tactics, not so much.
Yeah.
Right? We're not awful at it, but we could be better. Right, it's a false dichotomy between ePortfolio, the process, and ePortfolio, the artifact.
Right.
It's a false separation. I mean, the what's in it for me question is always answers, well, what did I get out of this process? Well, I got an artifact, right? In truth, that's not what you really got. What you really got was personal growth.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I don't know, that's subjective, my own experience. I don't know how many others have experienced that. But to me, that speaks to maybe we're not getting effectively the right message out to our students on what the purpose of portfolio is, outside of it's a check mark, it's a grade you get and required to graduate. If the government were to come to ask us and say, how are your students doing on competency X, right? We might be able to give them an answer. We would certainly give them a results-based answer rather than a learning-based answer. But
Yeah.
If we institutionalize portfolio, maybe not even just as a college thing, maybe it's a provincial thing. Like what's done in Europe is the extreme, but I mean what could be done in Nova Scotia isn't. Then we could actually answer that question for the people that fund us after they graduate. Did they achieve those goals? So how are you going to make the portfolio a living thing, the ePortfolio a living thing that they come back to revisit, you know, years after they graduate, that it's still relevant to them? And that might be part of the buy-in issue is, from a student's perspective, how is portfolio or ePortfolio relevant to me after I'm done? Well, there are people who will drink the Kool-Aid sooner than others, and that's the problem, and the challenge, right, is that if you were to roll out a staff ePortfolio system, there will be a certain segment on that top part of the curve, the adopter curve will say, oh, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, it tastes really great, I want to go make this happen for my students, right? Even though their cohorts aren't. It'll come down to the college being decisive about what it wants to do for portfolio, and if it wants to do an early program to handle its staff, it'll be decisive about it, making it happen, and connecting the dots for people. The Web 2.0 mashup scenario is fraught with dangers. It's fraught with dangers legislatively. We talk about privacy concerns and what we're actually legally allowed to do. It's also fraught with dangers with just what you're talking about, the user experience. Right? You have a consistent user experience, consistency of measurement tools. There's a lot of work for integration, and then you don't actually own the data. I mean, these things are auditable processes too, right? We want to roll something out to staff that's something that's audible to the Board of Governors, to the provincial government or whatever. Or we want to roll something out to students that's the same way. Then we have a responsibility, ethically and legally, to build the best system that we can, and as robust as we can, right? To do what we want. Employee services will be an excellent, and organizational learning and development will be excellent partners in rolling this out as an internal pilot. If the systems that you build support, especially background activity like learning, capturing learning, right, was integrated into their experience, their daily work experience, it was tied to PeopleSoft, it was tied to SharePoint now or NSCC, whether or not every day, it was tied to email for that matter. If it was tied to what they do every day, it would become a background activity and they would just do it, right? If it's something different, if that they have to go into some wall garden somewhere that they have to tap into to go, okay, now I'm doing my work all day, now I got to plug out and go do my ePortfolio thing for a while, it won't happen.